Listen up. Here it is. Automate closest to the pane or the cache. So let me break that down in two ways. I'm going to show you the pane route, and then I'm going to show you the cache route. Now, I've talked about my morning automation in this video. Let me just have the agent break it down for us so you can see how I automated the pain of inertia and procrastination away. So while the agent is coming up with the answer for this, what I wanted to solve, the pain I wanted to solve, was the pain of getting started and procrastination and moving forward. And this was really keeping me from succeeding in my goals. I felt like the best way for me to be able to inspire myself, because that's really what I was looking for, was inspiration, was to use the recent past, as in yesterday and the day before that, and what I had already done in that recent past to help me move forward into the future. Everything I'm telling you, by the way, can be done in Claude code. It can be done in Codex. It can be done in any of the agentic tools out there today. I love Cursor, so that's where we're going to stay. And in my Obsidian Vault are two really important places where this automation is concerned. One is Flow Lab, where I keep all of the work logs, all of the work that I do every day. Whenever I finish a task, I simply run a command called brief. I just say, let's do a brief. I have a lot of verbal triggers that I use to start automations. And brief is started by any of these phrases. So catch up, or let's reorient ourselves, or let's take stock, or let's get caught up. All of these, the agent will recognize as a trigger to run the brief skill, which then adds what I've been doing to my work log, including skills learned, and another really important one, which is, I'm going to find one here, friction. This is important to the automating pain away, because friction is pain. It means a place where we got stuck, or we ran into a problem, or I got overwhelmed. The other folder are the daily check-ins, and this basically are my daily logs. I just write everything in it that's going on for me today. So the Flow Lab is where this automation pulls information about what I've been doing work-wise, and the daily logs are where it's been pulling in information on what I'm doing personal-wise. Every day at noon, a cron job runs that starts a script called Morning Companion. This flow, I'd love to say, was something that I just whipped up on a Saturday afternoon and it was working. No, this is a workflow that I've been working on for maybe 4 weeks now. And if you're wondering what I'm using to speak to my agent, I'm using a tool called Handy Computer, which I love. I love this tool because it's free, it's open source, and the models are on your computer. So it's completely private. Yeah, it works on everything. So handy.computer, I'll drop a link in the description. And when you're looking at what you want to automate, you need to define what everything is. But how do you get the information about what that everything is? In other words, where do you get the everything from? The secret is right here in your Obsidian Vault. If I were going to just start automating the hell out of everything, I would start with creating an Obsidian Vault and building that out with the agent. I actually have a starter kit. This actually works with any agent. So you could use this in Cursor, you could use this in Claude Code, you can use it in Claude Cowork, you can use it in OpenAI's Codex. It doesn't really matter. The point is that it will walk you through the process of starting an Obsidian Vault with the agent helping you do so. And it also builds out the Obsidian Vault with all of the core plugins set up automatically for you to use it. All you have to do is go through the 3 prompts. I'll put a link to this in the description. The first thing that I would do is build out my Obsidian Vault. This thing is worth so much to me. I mean, you'll have to claw my vault out of my cold, dead hands. The way that you identify everything that you do so that you can start to remove some of those things from your plate is with the power of an Obsidian Vault. So the morning script automation runs here. It will check whether everything is already running. It will fetch fresh Reddit data. I wanted only on subjects I was interested in. And since I spend a lot of time on Reddit, I asked it to pull from very specific subreddits. JSON files are really important when you are doing agentic automation. I work with something called the Keystone and Tinkerbench method, which is a method I completely made up. That's why you haven't heard of it. And it basically keeps the keystone, which is the most important thing that I'm doing to reach my goal, and the Tinkerbench, which are the little side projects that I like to do when I don't have energy to move forward on the keystone, but I still want to be productive. So from here, it's going to pick a quote from the library once it has context. My recent achievements, which are pulled from here, but not just all the good things. It also looks for things that I'm struggling with as well too. So it will now go over to the Codex library. So in the Codex library are all of these books about issues that I struggle with, or that I want to learn from, or that I need inspiration about, including even books on philosophy and productivity. There are, if I'm not mistaken, over 150 books in my library. And once it pulls that quote, it will put it into a JSON file. And here's another important point, that along the process of this automation, step 2 only begins if step 1 finished cleanly. What it does is it will send the first Telegram message to me, and it will update exactly what it sent, so that I don't get repeats. And the best way I figured out to force the agent to be creative is basically keep it from being able to output the same text again the next day. So the JSON basically says, if the text exists over here, you said this yesterday, you can't say it again today. It chooses 3 Reddit posts, which are really helpful. And not only that, the posts are new. So none of these posts at the time that I receive them are more than an hour old. And down here, it gives me a little bit of a journal prompt. This is the second part of this automation, and I'd say it's really the most powerful part. I love these images so much that I actually bought a really beautiful digital frame that sits directly to the left of my desk in a bookshelf right next to me, that I can see today's image. It will then stage that wallpaper, create a composition for it in Remotion. Once it has taken care of the entire process of composing it, it will send the second Telegram message, which is the image. Now, this was a very difficult automation to do, and I got pretty tired of debugging it because there were just so many places in this process where there can be a breakdown. I'm going to show you later on in the video about how to reduce errors in the automations that you build while you're automating the hell out of everything. What I used to do is have the automation send me a failure alert on Telegram. Then I'd have to get up, come into the office and say, the morning companion automation broke. There was a lot of hardening that went on for this automation. And if you're wondering what hardening is, it basically means finding the fail states and creating fixes so that it doesn't fail again. But what I did was I actually created a last step to this where if the automation fails, it will trigger a repair flow. Basically, it'll trigger a clanker. I talked about clankers in the last episode I did, but the clankers are here, the clanker core, and it will basically create a task. And when the morning companion breaks, it creates a task, labels what happened, what the symptoms are, what files are involved in whatever broke, and then completely autonomously, it'll go through the repair in a checklist. You must prove that you did the work. So it doesn't just go through and check these things off. It has to show evidence. That's been working really well. I highly recommend it. And in fact, I'm going to add that to all of the scripts that basically when they break, they basically have to fix themselves. Because since I'm not a developer, I can't make the fix. I can watch over the fix. I can describe the problem. But the error is often something that only the agent can determine. And if it goes through the step-by-step process, there's no difference between me watching it work through those steps over here while I sit at the desk. It work through the steps autonomously. I ensure that the script calls a model that is high enough to handle it. The daily log part of this pain relieving process is when I simply open up the Telegram app, with the microphone and I just spew out as much as I want to spew. And then OpenClaw, because I will do this into Telegram where OpenClaw lives, and it will hand the whole log to Cursor. Cursor will put in, or if a file already exists, append everything I said, and then it will clean it up. And it will do so because of a skill called the daily check-in skill. And this is a good example of showing how when you can get really creative with automation, it's about chaining the tools that you have available to you together. And that's my pain reliever example. Because this is an automation that no one would ever make into an app. No one would ever make an app that could look in a person's Obsidian vault. This was something that has been immeasurable for me for quality of life improvement. This simple thing and this beautiful frame with these daily quotes from books that were just sitting and gathering digital dust. So this has just been absolutely fantastic example of automating away the pain. Automating closest to the cache is the power tool for when you're doing automations for your business or freelancing or your side hustle or your gig or whatever it might be. The question to ask yourself when you're beginning to figure out what you should be automating here is, if I removed X from my plate, would it bring more cash in? In this case, I asked myself, what is causing the most blockage of cash into my little fledgling business? And that was not posting enough YouTube videos. With the heat of 1,000 suns, I hate editing. I find it to be deeply painful and stressful. So I decided to figure out how to automate editing using an AI agent. But it basically boiled down to this. I record the video normally, and the script is just scaffolding. So I just say what the video is about. I just speak. I just share what I'm trying to teach. Then the recording gets moved into the video folder, and I will cut silences with Recut, which is a great tool. It will just cut out all of those silences. Then in DaVinci Resolve, I will output an SRT that has word level timestamps. And the agent will go through 3 passes. Pass 1, which is a mechanical cleanup, so retakes and flubs and abandoned sentences. Pass 2, which is retention editing. And this is the power pass, because what we did here in order to teach the agent what retention editing is, was I simply grabbed a great number of YouTube videos, went through them, decided which ones I wanted to keep, and then converted it into a master guide. These master guides have been really helpful at getting a large amount of information into a neatly sorted document that is not only helpful for me to read through and learn from, but also really helpful for me to give to the agent. So the automation that the agent goes through is it has to read this YouTube retention guide before running pass 2. And this pass is specifically for deleting anything. So this is to tighten up the video, giving nothing left but the structure that needs to be there. But the agent will go through after it does pass 3, which is basically, should something be moved earlier or later in order to have a better video flow? But here, what it does is it will take the SRT, it will match it up with the edited transcript words and basically determine where the cuts go. We had to do a lot of kind of adding in extra frames in the cuts. Otherwise, it would basically cut words off. So I spent a lot of time cleaning up the cuts. So the short version here is that I don't have to sit there and make every cut by hand. This is so important. A video, when you break it down, is really just text. It's just a transcript. There's visuals on the screen. But the way that I teach is purposely designed to be second monitor content. So you see, I'm always describing where my mouse is, my thinking being that you can learn along with me without having to constantly look over at the other screen. So I realized that since I teach in that way through years of training myself to do so, that meant that as long as I was explaining what was happening on the screen, the agent didn't need to see the screen. So this is an automation that helped me so much because now I can produce more content. And as the automation improves, more is taken from my plate that I can then spend on other things. So automate closest to the cache or the pain, sometimes both. You've identified what's blocking the cache or causing the pain. So where do you start then? The answer is really, really simple. A checklist. Once you've decided what it is you're going to automate, do it one last time, hopefully. Get a microphone or put your microphone here and cursor or Claude Code or some chat box. It doesn't matter. It's a lot better to just get into the process and just say, the first step is open DaVinci Resolve. The second step is I right-click and I export the project. The third step is I re-import the project and so on. That's all I did. I just sat there and wrote out everything that I do for the ideation phase. And at this point, now I caution, do not overcomplicate, but you can add in a little bit of what you'd like the agent to do for you. I did get myself underwater a bit when I first started out with the engine by trying to automate this entire thing. So that leads me to the next. We have gotten what we're going to automate. You have written out a checklist. The next step is to take just one part of that checklist and automate that. So instead of automating all of these 7 steps, I went to the most painful thing that once removed would bring in the most amount of cash and flow into the business. And I just automated step 6, the AI editing process. That's literally it. And the process was easy to automate because of the previous step and the power of the checklist, which literally describes the entire process and exactly who does what at each point because of the human in the loop. Some automations are completely autonomous. For example, my comment guard automation, which finds YouTube comments that come into my videos, sends me the ones that are really kind or where people need help, so I can go directly to those comments and respond to them. And any of the comments where someone is trolling, being rude or unkind, I never even see them. The automation takes them, gives them directly to my husband, who will then go right over to the channel and delete the comment and hide the user. And I never see it. And that was a huge unlock for me because that was a pain point for producing content. That's an automation that runs on its own with the exception of the last step, the human in the loop, which is basically my husband acting as moderator for the channel. But this ideation checklist, so the way that I've designed these checklists is that when a human in the loop is required, this red block shows up. So it's a very quick way for both me and the agent to see that this is where I jump in. Once you have your checklist and you've defined what is your part and what's the agent's part, you take the smallest part of that and you just start with automating that. The key point to automation is that it is, at its essence, pretty simple. It's basically a process that is moved through, like data, that is moved from step to step to step automatically. You can use predefined tools like N8N, but in the end, all this is doing is giving a user interface to what can be done programmatically. I'm just going to read this. Our automation stack is basically cron wakes it up. Cursor does the thinking. The vault work scripts, in other words, the Python or shell scripts, depending on the automation. And then the output is sent somewhere, either to a log. Well, it's always sent to a log, or it's sent to me on Telegram, or sometimes the output might be sent to begin another automation. There's more than one way to start an automation. Most of the automations that we have run by cron jobs. I've got a number of ways of triggering automations. The first one is natural language. Another one are message or reply triggers. So Telegram replies can trigger an automation. So startup and logon triggers, heartbeat and polling triggers, and webhooks and API calls are things like something happening in Discord or someone paying you on Stripe. You can also have things like when I receive an email or when I receive a certain type of email. Another cool one is completion chaining, where you can have one agent finish a task and another agent pick up the next task. that can only begin if all of the states for the first task are correct and completed. So you have some ideas of what you want to automate. You're clear on your process. You know which parts you're going to be giving to the agent and which require a human in the loop. And you've even gotten that automation built out. You have something working and you wake up in the morning and you're all excited to get your morning brief and it breaks. This is frustrating until I recently figured out how to have an agent actually do the repairs automatically. Automating was painful. I love the creative aspect of automation. Automation can be so creative when you're automating the hell out of everything. And it's really exciting. You start to feel like you're flying almost but then it all starts to break. And it's gonna break. There are very few automations that I have built that just worked day one and just haven't given me a single problem. I have a few, but not many. I found a great Reddit post here. I'll link it in the description below that talked about some repeated things that people have learned about hardening their workflows. And the number one thing is to really check the output. If this breaks, your entire automation breaks. The problem is that what comes out of here that N8N and other apps do really well is they don't let data flow out of here unless that data is properly structured, generally JSON. And the same thing needs to happen when you automate for yourself. If a step is supposed to return JSON, you have to make it return JSON and validate it. And close enough won't do it because 10 steps later, that close enough could cause everything to break down. And because models, the way they generate text is generative and not determinative, you never know whether it's just going to output some wrong JSON. So each output has to be treated as untrusted. Every step that it did, it absolutely had to prove that the step had been completed correctly and not just say it had. It had to show the evidence. You want to also keep things small, but the name of this video is automate the hell out of everything, not automate the hell out of everything at once, because that's just a tragedy. Don't do that. Break it down into tiny steps. The other thing, and I actually made this mistake early on, my prompts were as elegant as the please fix it, damn it prompt doesn't tell it what broke it, but what didn't work. If there are lots of different steps in an automation, what if it broke right here? Maybe the model wasn't available. What if it broke right here? Maybe this JSON wasn't properly formatted. Or what if it broke right here, where the Dropbox API was down for some reason? Logs solve that problem. They log along the way exactly what happened. Not only do you log what happened, but log what the agent was thinking, and if you can, the tools it called, or at least some of the tools it called. I keep 7 days worth of logs because it allows me to see what's going wrong here in Cursor that's causing the agent to basically mess up here. And this is not for just automations. It's just for working with Cursor day to day. Once I started doing this, this really opened up everything for me, because sometimes you'll find that an agent is trying to take care of a step, but it can't read a tool for some reason. In its thinking, you might see where the agent is going wrong. So having the automation log everything is really helpful. And then finally, adding in sanity checks. So basically, you have agents checking agents throughout the automation. What I have learned is making every stage fail loudly, because believe me, there's nothing that leads to more sobbing than having it break and having no idea why it broke. It is very, very tempting to want to make everything agentic, make everything have the AI do everything. Not only is that wildly expensive, but it's not reliable. Agents are not to be relied on for their outputs. Their outputs must be put through something deterministic. And the deterministic part is where the scripts come in, where particularly the structured data, JSON, comes in. And even with that deterministic behavior, you can still have the agent do really creative, beautiful, and inspiring things. And even though I know that what is running behind these images that I'm getting is a bunch of JSON, Python, and really very structured processes, what I get every morning is still really beautiful and really inspiring and helps me get out of bed and keep going. I did a complete breakdown of the Morning Companion automation, even deeper than I went into it in this video, along with 2 other automations that I absolutely love. My favorite being the third one, the Clanker Core. And I did all of that for you in this video, which is on screen right now.